Welcome back. You're watching a special edition of the morning show here on Arise News, coming to you from Abuja. Well, let's go straight away to our Lagos studio, where Reuben Abati is hopefully waiting to talk with me for having a chat on the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB. Great to see you, Reuben. Good to chat with you on air, and knowing you the way that I do, you're obviously comprehensively taking in what's been happening as far as the arrest of Nnamdi Kanu is concerned. Give us your take on that. What do you make of the way he was arrested, what we know so far, and what you see going forward from here?
Well, first, Charles, good morning, and let me congratulate you on that brilliant and memorable interview with the Group Managing Director of NNPC, and all the very important questions you asked him about the acquisition of equity in private refineries, about vandalism, about the future of oil and Nigeria, and about transparency and all the efforts that he has been making. Brilliant responses and excellent questions. Now, as to the hot topic of the moment, the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu, which was announced yesterday. Well, at one level, we can see this as the continuation of a judicial process. You will recall that Nnamdi Kanu was first arrested by the Nigerian state in 2015, and he was put to a trial. Now, later in April 2017, he requested for bail, and that bail was granted by the same court of Justice Binta Inyako. But then again, in September 2017, he became a flight risk. The court had said he was granted that bail on health grounds. And then, of course, in September 2017, he fled. He became a fugitive from the law. And since then, the Nigerian state had been making efforts, first to challenge the persons who stood as sureties for him, and to ensure that he returned to face a trial. And then, of course, all of that went on. But what we were told was that on Sunday, 27th June, according to the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami SAN, that he was rearrested. He was intercepted with the support of international security agencies. And he was immediately rearraigned before the court, and the 11-count charges, the 11-count charge were restated. And the learned justice asked that his lawyers should be so informed. The case has now been adjourned to July 26, and he has been asked to be remanded in the custody of the Department of State Services, the DSS. That is it. You know, so I said, one, it is a continuation of a judicial process, because if you become a fugitive from the law, then of course the state will have a responsibility to track you down. And with a structure like the Interpol, International Police, we have seen cases across the world whereby persons are brought to justice with the assistance of the international community. Two, as the Attorney General of the Federation given enough details, well, what we're told, what we have read in the papers, is that the Attorney General, during his briefing yesterday, accompanied by the Inspector General of Police, refused to disclose where he was rearrested, the country where he was intercepted, and whether there was any extradition involved. Mr. Kanu is a British national. He has dual nationality. The British authorities have said that he was not extradited from the United Kingdom, that he was not arrested there. If he was arrested perhaps in the United Kingdom, there will have been a long drawn-out negotiation with regard to the extradition process, as we have seen in other cases. Now, there's been a lot of speculation whether he was arrested in Czech Republic or Singapore or Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, or even in a neighboring West African country. But so far, what we have been told is that this Nigerian state is not willing, for diplomatic reasons, to disclose where it was, intercepted from. Now, what are the implications? The first one has to do with what goes on beyond now. July 26, yes, he will be, he will appear again before the court. Will the charges be amended? Because since the 11-count charges dealing with treasonable felony, dealing with incitement of the public, illegal possession of firearms, and so on and so forth, the Nigerian state is now accusing him further of having taken steps to overwhelm the Nigerian state from within and from outside, and also of having been involved in violent activities against persons and state infrastructure. Now, it's not impossible that if those charges are amended, as has been indicated, he may be charged for treason. And treason, the penalty for that is death. If it is treasonable felony, well, he will be lucky to get away with, life imprisonment. Will he be granted bail again? Maybe not, having presented himself as a flight risk, before he was re-arrested. But what I think is important in terms of the reactions that we have seen is the concern expressed by his counsel and also by other stakeholders to say that, look, so far he's still an accused person and is entitled under the Constitution of Nigeria to fair hearing, as spelled out in Section 36, subsection 5, or indeed the whole of Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution. And two, that his rights must so accordingly be respected, and that, he must be treated fairly. And I think that all of that concern is very important because of the reactions that we have seen from, the eastern part of the country. In the eastern part of the country, there is a lot of apprehension, there is a lot of anxiety from the streets of Olu to Owerri, to Onitsha, to every part of the eastern part of the country. And that is why I align myself with those who say, that the government of Nigeria should be cautious, should ensure that due process is followed in this matter. Will this bring an end to agitation for self-determination in the southeastern part of the country? Maybe not.
Right.
And for what reason? For the simple reason that the legacy of the Civil War remains very bitter. You may take out an Nnamdi Kanu, but another Nnamdi Kanu may well emerge tomorrow. And where all of this will lead to, beyond the judicial process, is the need to address the root causes, the basic issues, the subtextual issues behind the agitation led by Nnamdi Kanu.
That's a very, very good analysis, Ruben. And just before you go, very quickly, in the immediate term, because you've set out very comprehensively what might happen or the possibilities going forward. In the immediate term, do you see any security implications for Nigeria and the southeast region as a result of the re-apprehension of Nnamdi Kanu?
Well, that was why I talked about the anxiety that has been reported from the eastern part of the country, the apprehension that has been reported, and whether or not the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu will put an end to the agitation of the people of the southeast. Some of the papers have reported this morning that following his rearrest, military agents, policemen have been deployed to keep the peace in the southeastern part of the country. Well, yes, that means that the Nigerian state itself recognizes that there could be security implications. And the reaction from the southeast has been mixed. There is a group called Ohanaeze Ndị Igbo Worldwide that says that the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu will put an end to the threat of secession, separation, or war in the southeast. But we have not heard yet from the mainstream body, the Ohanaeze Ndị Igbo. There's also an Alaigbo Foundation that has also, put a statement out there. But what is important at the end of the day is to ensure that everyone must see that justice is done and that there is transparency in terms of how the process plays out, in my view.
Absolutely, Ruben. Thank you very much indeed. Ruben Abati talking to me there from Lagos. Welcome back. You're watching a special edition of the morning show here on Arise News. It's coming to you from Abuja, and of course Rotis Odiri is in Lagos. He's got the Africa Business Update. Good to talk with you, Rotis. I don't think we've ever spoken on air, but here we are. And just before you take over, because I know you've got a lot of things to share with the audience, what do you make of what the Group Managing Director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, has been saying? I mean, I can't imagine anyone who has a better ear to the business ground than yourself.
Good morning, Charles. Great to be with you. Yes, indeed. It is quite funny. This is the first time we're speaking on air. Look, that was a great interview, and the African Business Update is pretty much centered around the exclusive interview that you just had with the Group Managing Director, Mele Kyari of the NNPC. And in particular, you asked some pretty, pertinent questions around the loan that the NNPC plans on taking to the tune of about $3.8 billion to take a 20% stake in the Dangote refinery. What the business community is asking is, okay, look, and you also asked him about the Port Harcourt refinery, and that is the rehabilitation that needs to take place there to the tune of $1.5 billion. Okay, so look, we understand that the NNPC wants to expand its portfolio. We understand energy risk management. We get all that. But if you're going to take that amount of a stake, if I'm going to get a loan, right, which he says is not government money, he says that's going to be sourced from banks and is going to be paid back from the cash flows and dividends to come from the company, that's fine. But $3.8 billion for the NNP, as a 20% stake in the NNPC, 20% stake in the Dangote refinery, while you're also going to look for sourcing for $1.5 billion for the Port Harcourt refinery, that's got a few people scratching their heads. I mean, if Dangote refinery at a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day eclipses the combined capacity of Port Harcourt, of Warri, of Kaduna at 450,000. So why would you want to go get $1.5 billion to rehabilitate that? You also asked him a very good question about their capacity to be able to manage these refineries. So look, if the Dangote refinery which comes on stream in 2022 is where we're going, if that is where all hopes for foreign exchange and reducing what we pay at the pump here, if that's where the direction we're going, then the NNPC should probably be concentrating its efforts in that regard. So that pretty much is the thoughts there. But, beyond that, there was something that he said that was captured by This Day newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. And he mentioned it in your interview with you as well, that the landing cost of fuel is now at 256 naira per litre. Now, Charles, not too long ago, about March 25th, Mele Kyari said that based on the landing cost at that time, which I think was about 182, 190, that's what it cost to bring in refined fuel into Nigeria. The pump price was about 230 or 240 naira per litre, with a landing cost of 256. Now, in the interview, I think he said the pump price was 256, but what was captured in the newspaper was that the landing cost was 256. So, if the landing cost is at 256, oil prices now have been flirting with $75, $76 a barrel. You are looking at a final pump price of anywhere from 330 or 320 to 330, 340 naira per litre. So your question to him about what Nigerians will be paying and the impact that subsidy is having on the NNPC and its ability to remit funds to the Federation account was a very pertinent question. And he unfortunately, it kind of seemed like he was saying two things at the same time. One, he was saying that we can't afford, or that is the NNPC cannot afford to continue to do the under recovery, which is the subsidy. And then on the other hand, he also said that, well, President Buhari is saying that, well, you can't just, put this on Nigerians, they can't afford it. Well, which is it? And by the way, this was put forward by the morning show crew in Lagos when they had that exclusive interview with President Buhari. That's what precipitated all this when they asked him about subsidies. So, great interview with Mele Kyari, but again, what the business community is looking at is, look, if you can't afford to remit money to the Federation account, then you've got to continue to put more pressure on the federal government to say that, hey, look, we can't continue this subsidy any further. And as long as oil prices continue to climb, OPEC Plus should be having their ministerial meeting. I think they postponed it to tomorrow or so, the day after. Oil prices have been climbing in anticipation of that meeting because they think like they're going to maintain output. As optimism grows, I know there's a few COVID-19 flare-ups around the world, but as optimism on oil demand grows, as oil prices continue to climb, that is going to mean a higher cost for subsidy. And Mele Kyari himself, about a week or two ago in an interview, said that it's a chicken and egg situation whereby rising oil costs, are not rosy. He even said it with you in your interview, saying that, look, you don't want to continue to rise. So it's a cost, as far as the subsidy is concerned, that is the main concern for the business community in that, with what was said in that exclusive interview that you just had with Mele Kyari. But the two things, the question around $3.8 billion loan, again, sourced from banks, not government money, for the 20% stake in Dangote refinery, and the additional $1.5 billion just for Port Harcourt. We haven't started talking about Warri and Kaduna. A bit of questions around cost management there. We move to the Senate, Charles. The Senate has, this is still oil and gas, because those are dominating issues in Nigeria right now, in the business community. The Senate has received a report from their committee, which was on the petroleum industry bill. Again, that's something that you and Mele Kyari talked about extensively. And that report essentially means that the Senate is going to begin deliberating on the petroleum industry bill, which is a much needed reform bill that's been languishing now for about 14 years. They will begin tomorrow. And I understand that Mele Kyari also is going to be meeting with members of the National Assembly in order to ensure that there's a smooth transition and it passes. But, Charles, the issue here is, and we talked about this on the morning show, it was either this week or last week, there are still issues with the bill being passed. In fact, you also mentioned the concerns that Shell has with the gas portions of the petroleum industry bill, and you brought, again, in your excellent interview with Mele Kyari, you brought it up. In that Shell, despite the fact that Mele Kyari is meeting with the National Assembly and saying that they want to make sure that it passes, despite the fact that the Senate said they will begin deliberations on the petroleum industry bill and making sure it passes, what about the existing issues? The host communities, where the oil is pulled out from the ground, that wants a 10% allocation as opposed to a 2% allocation that's being proposed in the bill. They are up in arms about that. Oil and gas companies like Shell, as you brought up in your interview with Mele Kyari, saying that, look, the gas portion of the petroleum industry bill, the fiscal portion of gas in the petroleum industry bill as it stands, disincentivizes oil and gas companies to produce. And there's also this other matter of making sure that you address domestic demand first before you can export gas to other nations, which isn't done anywhere else. So, Charles, the issue here is that with those prevailing issues that are still surrounding the petroleum industry bill and its passage, which have been around for as long as we've been discussing this, how does the Senate plan on deliberating on this tomorrow and getting it passed with the existing opposition that still exists to the bill? They've got to work it out, and there's got to be some urgency. Financial Derivatives Company Limited, which is run by Bismarck Rewane, who is also a member of President Buhari's Economic Advisory Council, put out a report saying that not passing the petroleum industry bill, the opportunity cost, or what is costing the Nigeria, is to the tune of $15 billion a year. And they even said, in addition to that, even if you did pass the bill tomorrow, they've wasted so much time that with the rest of the world moving to renewables, Total is calling itself an energy company. Shell has been taking assets off onshore and looking more into deep water. With all these, Chevron, all these other companies looking at renewables, has Nigeria missed the boat? Not having passed this bill for so long. So with all that time that has passed, with everyone else moving forward and moving on to renewables, is there still something to be gained from the bill as it is? And then you still have the host community issues. You still have oil and gas companies saying that the gas portion of the PIB bill disincentivizes exploration and production. There's still a lot of issues around there. But hey, the Senate, they said it was going to pass in April. They said it was going to pass in May. Now we're here in June. I believe that they've got a small window to get this passed. But again, the Senate has received a report from the committee they put on the PIB. Ahmad Lawan, who is the Senate president, said that there has to be a copy given to every single member of the Senate so they can deliberate on this thoroughly tomorrow. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. The key thing that the business community is looking at, how do you get past the concerns raised by Shell? How do you get past the concerns raised by the host communities? Next up, we move to Ghana. there should be a flyer on screen, hopefully, showing Nana Akufo-Addo, President of Ghana, announcing the commissioning of a Toyota plant, vehicle assembly plant in Ghana. This is the outcome of the Tokyo Africa Summit that took place, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago. Shinzo Abe, when he was still Prime Minister, headlined that. President Buhari was there, Nana Akufo-Addo was there, a bunch of African leaders were there. And at that Tokyo Africa Summit, Investment Summit, Ghana signed a deal with Toyota to set up assembly plants. And they moved quickly. They didn't go there to pose for pictures. They didn't go there to smile. They went there to sign a deal. And now this is the outcome of the deal. You should be seeing images now of Nana Akufo-Addo and his Minister of Trade for Ghana and also members of Toyota at that plant. Right now, images there where they're shaking hands and the plant is happening. One, what are the benefits to Ghana? Number one is going to reduce imports of vehicles coming into Ghana because they're going to be assembling vehicles in Ghana. So Ghanaians don't have to now be spending scarce foreign exchange on importing vehicles. Two, it's going to create jobs, right? You put together a new assembly plant, it's going to attract jobs, attract demand to produce them. Three, they're going to be exporting some of these vehicles to other African nations. By the way, this is the second plant that is popping up in Ghana. The first one was from Volkswagen, and that was in August or September of 2020. So Ghana they're moving. They're moving ahead with this. There are more plants that are being planned, and the timing is perfect with the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement coming on stream. Ghana now is perfectly placed to now start to assemble vehicles and then export them to other African nations. So foreign exchange earnings, job creation, exports to other countries, reducing imports of vehicles into Ghana, those are the benefits. You can't talk about Ghana without talking about Nigeria. Unfortunately, it seems like, I don't know, maybe it's a competition thing, neighbors or so on and so forth. Nigeria also has an automotive plan. This plan, the Automotive Industry Development Plan, NAIP, was put in place back in 2012, 2013 under the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Now, that plan is being revamped or reworked as we speak because you can fit Ghana in Lagos, based on roughly, if you can. So we have such a larger market. Nigeria's vehicle demand annually is about 720,000 vehicle demand. Production is about 14,000. There's a big gap. So Nigeria was also at that very same summit, that Tokyo Africa Summit that took place years ago. But we are not seeing the same level of engagement with vehicle assembly plants being announced that we're seeing in Ghana. Of course, we've got our own indigenous players. We've got Innocent, we've got other companies here. However, we've got to quickly, this urgency, there's this matter of urgency the business community keeps talking about with Nigeria, the petroleum industry bill, deregulation of the downstream sector, the automotive development plan, all these things come into play. So we've got to get that going. We've got to move forward quickly. Power is an issue when it comes to vehicle assemblies in Nigeria. Also, steel, the Ajaokuta steel plant, that's moribund as far as that's concerned. So that's generally what we're seeing with the issues that are going on around the African business community.
Well, as I said, Rotus, I can't imagine anyone who could have put this as comprehensively, not just in terms of the analysis of the chat with Mele Kyari, but also all the other issues. And I want to thank you exceedingly, Rotus Odiri there, talking to me from our studios in Lagos. Welcome back. You're watching the morning show here on Arise News, a special edition coming to you from Abuja. Well, let's take you back to Lagos for an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, my colleague Adeshua Omoruwan is there with all the latest. Morning, Adeshua. Good to see you, and over to you.
Good morning, Charles, and thank you so much. Let's begin with the statistics like we'll normally do on this segment. The global coronavirus has sickened over 181 million people globally and killed, unfortunately, at least 3.9 million others. Vast majority have recovered from the virus. However, there are those who continue to see symptoms of the virus weeks and months after they've recovered, otherwise known as the long COVID. When it comes to vaccination, over 3 billion doses have now been administered across the globe. China has administered 1.2 billion of those 3 billion doses. And just yesterday at the G20 Summit for Foreign Ministers, China revealed it has sent 450 million vaccine doses to almost 100 countries across the globe, while urging other G20 countries to do just the same. Here in Nigeria, the country has so far been spared from the devastating third wave sweeping across the continent of Africa. 11 new cases were posted in the last 24 hours, according to the latest NCDC data. Kaduna and Oyo State posted the most infections, with 3 cases each from those states. And out of the 4,024,000 AstraZeneca vaccine doses available in Nigeria, the country has now administered over 3.5 million doses for the first and second doses of the vaccination exercise. The NPHCDA, which is the primary agency for vaccination in the country, touts Nigeria as the one with the highest vaccination rates on the continent of Africa. It says about 88% of the available vaccine doses in the country have now been utilized. Well, let's leave Nigeria for a bit. Rather, let me stay with Nigeria, because on this segment on the morning show, on several occasions, the question about what the Nigerian government is doing to curb the devastating third wave on the continent is doing have popped up. And at the recent Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 meeting held on Monday, that question and many more were partly responded to. So the PSC at its latest meeting reviewed that the travel restrictions on Brazil, Turkey, and India, which are currently on the red list for arriving travelers, have now been extended for 4 weeks, just as South Africa was added to the list due to the exponential rate of infections driven by the Delta variant first identified in India is driving cases in that country. Other African countries experiencing a surge, such as Zambia, Rwanda, Namibia, Uganda, have also been put on a watch list. And although the Delta variant is surging across the continent of Africa, health authorities here in Nigeria say the variant has not been found in Nigeria. Again, we were told at that PCA briefing that the country is expecting a second tranche of 3.9 million AstraZeneca doses through the COVAX scheme by August, and another 29.8 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine through the African Union by September this year. On why the numbers remain so low in Nigeria, well, the PSC says the country still has a 1% test positivity rate. In the past 4 weeks, 40 to 50,000 tests were carried out, and only 949 were confirmed. It also revealed that there are plans in place to ensure availability and distribution of oxygen nationwide should the demand arise, from lessons learned from countries currently experiencing the third wave who are in dire need of oxygen. Nigeria says it is prepared, it is procuring, it is repairing plants, and all should be in place. Away from Nigeria now, as I promised, the African Union is warning the European Union's non-recognition of AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured in India risks disadvantaging Africans from traveling. Now, under the new rules to take effect from July 1st, which is Thursday, tomorrow, the EU will do away with the need for quarantines and further testing for travelers immunized with vaccines recognized by the European Medicines Agency, the EMA. These travelers will receive a digital certificate showing their vaccination status, but I can tell you, Charles, the EMA does not currently recognize Covishield. Covishield is a copy of the AstraZeneca made in India by the Serum Institute, which has been widely distributed to the African countries through the COVAX scheme. Currently, the WHO has recognized 2 versions of the AstraZeneca, one produced by SK Bio, that's in South Korea, and of course the one by the Serum Institute, otherwise known as the Covishield. 4 vaccines have been recognized by the EMA, and those are the AstraZeneca, but that made on the continent of Europe, and of course the Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and Pfizer-BioNTech. And finally this morning, let me tell you that the Red Cross is warning that the Delta variant of coronavirus is pushing Indonesia, the health system in Indonesia to a point of catastrophe. Patients are being treated in tents and hospital corridors as the wards are overwhelmed. Unfortunately, less than 5% of the country's 270 million population have been fully vaccinated. Indonesia is Southeast Asia's largest country, and it is at the brink of a catastrophe as a result of the coronavirus pandemic there.
Adesua, thank you very much indeed. And we've got a couple of minutes before we have to move on. But I mean, you've done a very comprehensive thing there, looking at COVID around the world. I don't know if you touched on this earlier. If you did, I apologize. I might have missed it. But Australia, of course, getting new cases of COVID and imposing new lockdowns there.
Indeed, Charles. I didn't touch that, so you didn't miss it. We're seeing Australia having those new cases, cluster of cases, just as it's planning to resume travel bubbles with some other countries, and on the other hand, relaxing those bubbles with some. So what we are seeing across the globe, Charles, is that even countries that have done incredibly well in the beginning of the pandemic are beginning to see those new cases. And it is simple. As long as people travel, as long as people move, the virus would move. And unfortunately, we haven't vaccinated just enough people to see these numbers reduce as much as we would want them. And of course, we're also seeing highly transmissible variants such as the Delta variant, which is now a variant of global concern when it comes to COVID. So it's no surprise that we're seeing those cases in Australia and other countries that have actually done extremely well in the initial stages.
And it's just interesting, isn't it, Adesua, that, you know, the whole issue of COVID, I mean, it seems like, you know, one step forward, then two steps backwards and another step forward. I mean, you sort of think, and I'm sure you probably know this better than I do, given that you deal with a lot of stories relating to COVID, but you sort of hear this thing about, oh, vaccines have arrived and, you know, the world is now moving on and there's, you know, hope and all that sort of thing. And then suddenly it's like the world isn't moving forward at all, and it remains on top of the agenda. We've seen the G20 meeting in Italy, and of course the global pandemic very near the top of their agenda. We saw the same thing with the G7. I mean, are you detecting any sort of COVID fatigue setting in? Like, people are, you know, it's like, when is all this going to finally come to an end?
You know, I wake up every morning, Charles, and I ask myself the same question. Are we going to ever get rid of COVID? But scientists have already said, you know, let's bust your bubble already. COVID is not going anywhere anytime soon. We might have to start to think about living with it, just as you have the cold flu in some places and they keep getting annual jabs for it. That might just be what we would have on our hands when it comes to COVID-19. But as to having the vaccines available yet moving two steps backwards, Charles, the strategy of the world to ending COVID-19 at the moment isn't unison. So we see it's different strokes for different folks. And as with everything, charity begins at home. With vaccination as well, as we've seen vaccine nationalism. So while some people are vaccinating their citizens out of the pandemic, or they think they are, because remember, as long as the virus remains, it mutates. And with mutation comes, unfortunately, highly transmissible, more virulent variants of the virus. So while they think they are vaccinating their citizens out of the pandemic, there are other places that are less vaccinated where people will still have to move around. So unfortunately, the world needs to change its strategy to ending the pandemic. At the moment, we don't have one united front when it comes to ending this pandemic.
Well, absolutely. That's a very good point. And just to make a note again. You were talking about Nigeria and the pandemic and what it's doing and so on. We saw earlier, and again you might have mentioned this, that South Africa has now been added to Nigeria's red list of countries for which there are stringent restrictions for arriving passengers. Those restrictions also include countries like India, Brazil, Turkey. But the caution, obviously, because of the Delta variant. But it's very interesting that, according to the man who runs Nigeria's Center for Disease Control, Dr. Ihekweazu, the Delta variant has not, in fact, been found in Nigeria.
Yes, indeed, Charles. That was the latest we got from the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19. But I must point out that a couple of weeks ago, we did have the Academy of Medicine Specialty, and Professor Chris Happy, a popular scientist and virologist in Nigeria, happens to be a member of that academy. And they released a statement saying 5 sequences of the B1617 variant, which has now been classified as the Delta variant, was actually discovered in Edo and Osun State. It came as a surprise to me to hear that the PSC actually said we do not have the Delta variant. We will need to press further to find out what happened in communication between the Academy of Medicine Specialties and the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 in Nigeria. Were those sequences not identified properly? Was it not the B1617 variant, which is now known as the Delta variant? What exactly happened to those 5 sequences that were identified in the states of Osun and, of course, Edo states?
Adesua, you're an absolute star. Thank you very much indeed. Adesua Omoruwan there talking to me from Lagos.